Good morning, Year 9 again. So just in case, again, you hear any weird sounds in the background of my video, my dog has decided to join us for some maths this morning. So if you hear anything, it's him messing around, doing what dogs do. So what I'd like you to do to start off is, as usual, write your date and title and your learning objective, and you'll see again today we're going to try and not use our calculator as much as possible. Okay, that's what we're going to really try and do. So pause the video, write those down, and we shall get going. So just a little recap from yesterday's lesson. Off he goes. Okay, so to find 50% of a quantity, you divide by 2, so you find a half. To find 10% of a quantity, you divide by 10. To find 1% of a quantity, you divide by 100. So they are the three things that you must always remember. What it means by quantity is just to find 50% of a number, 10% of a number, 1% of a number. But quantity means it could have something attached to it. So it could be like pounds or kilograms or something like that. That's what's meant by a quantity, okay, when it's got a little extra unit on there. So we can use 50%, 10% and 1% to find all different percentages. So how could I use 50%, 10% and 1% to find the following percentages? Now you don't need to write this down. Don't worry about writing this down. I just want you to listen to me for this bit. So how could we find 5%? What would be the easiest way to find 5% out of those, using those three percentages? Well, I think you could find 10%, and then what could you do to find 5%? I really want you to think about this. You could divide it by 2. You could find 10% and then half it to find what 5% is. How could you find 20%? Well, you could find 10% and times it by 2. What about 15? Well, I could find my 5% and I could find my 10% and I could add them together. So I could find 10% and then add my 5%, couldn't I? What about 25%? Now, there's a few things you could do here. The easiest thing that I think you could do is find 50% and then half it, because 25 is half of 50. And then 99. Now, this is just a little extra one that I thought we'd throw in. 99% is 100%, take away 1%. So what you could do is you could find 1% and then do the 100%, which is the number that you're given, and take away 1%. So that's just a little extra one that you could do there. A little extra one for you to think about. So you'll see as we go on how you can use 50%, 10% and 1% to find all different types of percentages. So I want you to really think about these. Some of these we might have done already. How would we find 11%? How would we find, well, we've done 20%. How would we find 26%? What would we use for each of those? And I really want you to have a think about them. Well, for 11%, we would find 10% and we would find 1% and add them together, wouldn't we? And that would give us 11%. We've already done 20%. We would find 10% and we would multiply it by 2. For 15, we would find 10% and 5% from the 10% and add them together. For 26, we could find 25% using the 50% and then just add 1%, couldn't we? 30%, we could find 10% and times it by 3. 55%, well, we could find 50%, find 5% using 10% and add them together, and so on. Okay, there's lots and lots we can do here. For 80%, I'd probably find 10% and then multiply it by 8, etc. For 75%, I'd find 50%. Oh, he's back. And add 25%. And you'd find 75% there. Lots of things you can do. So here's where I want you to start copying down. So you've got example number 1, calculate 50% of £60, 25% of £60, and then 75% of £60. So write those down and pause the video while you're writing those down. Firstly, we know how to find 50%. We would do 60 divided by 2, which gives us £30. So that's 50%. So we know 50%. How could we find 25%? Well, what we could do is we could get our 50% and divide it by 2 again to find 25%, which would give me £15. Because half of 30 is 15. And we know that 30 is 50%. So 15 has to be 25% because 25% is half of 50%. Then for the last one, 75%, we could get our 50% and add our 25%, which would be 30 plus 15, which would give us £45. Okay, and that there is 75% of 60. So really make sure you understand that. We divide to get from 50% to 25%, we half it because 25% is half of 50. And so we do the same here. We half it, okay? That's how we've got our 25% there. Okay, our second example, we've got 4 things to kind of focus on here. 10% of 50, well, we know that already. We know how to find that. We know we just need to do 50 divided by 10, and we get 5. So that's going to be £5 is 10% of 50. So how would we find 5% of 50? Well, I know that 10% to 5%, it's half, so I divide by 2. So to get my 5%, I would need to divide that by 2. So what's half of £5? £5 divided by 2 is £2.50. Yeah, half of £5 is £2.50. So we've got our 5% is £2.50 and our 10% is £5. To find 15%, well, we could use our 10% and our 5% and add them together. So that would be £5 add £2.50. £5 add £2.50 is £7.50. So that's 15% of £50 is £7.50. And how would we find 20%? Well, we know our 10% is 5. So 20% has to be double that, which is 10. So our 20% is £10 because we just times it by 2. Okay, remember, if you need to go back over any of that, rewind the video, go back over it, absolutely fine. Now, there are quite a few questions for you to do today, and there's a specific way I want you to set them out. If you look here, you've got a starting number, and I want you to find 50%, 25% and 75% of that number, just like example number 1 for each of those. So there are 12 to do there. And then on the next page, I want you to find 10%, 5%, 20%, 15 if you can, and 30 if you can. I really want you to have a good go at these. There's only 6 there to do, but I want you to set it out like they have. You can use highlighters, you can be as colourful as you want to. This might take you a little bit longer than the other lessons that we've done, but I think it's so important that, you know, percentages are such an important thing, not just in school, but you know, in life after school as well. Percentages need, you know, really need to know your percentages. So it's important you put the work in now. Okay, what I'll do, let me see if I've got time. Yep, we've got time, that's fine. I'll go through one of them from each one with you. So 60 is my starting one. I divide by 2 to find, I might type it actually because that'll probably be better than writing. Okay, so I've got 60, 50% I know I just need to divide that by 2, so I've got 30. 25% is half of 50%, so 25 is half of 30, which is 15. Oh, this is exactly the same as the example, so that's 45. Well, that's one done for you. Let's do another one then. Let's do this one. So we've got 28 to start off with. What's 50% of 28? So we need to do half of 28, which would be 14. 25% is half of 50%, so we've got to do half of 14, which is 7. And 75% is going to be 50%, add 25%, so 14 add 7, which is 21. Okay, so that's 2 done for you. So you've actually only got 10 to do now. And then let's have a look at the next ones. 10%, 5%, and 20%. So we start off with 60%. We find 10%, so we divide 60 by 10, which is 6. Now, 20% is double 10%, so that's going to be 12. And then 30% is 10% add 20%, which is going to be 18, because 10 add 20 gives me 30, so 6 add 12 gives me 18. Now 5% is half of 10%, so that's going to be 3, because half of 6 is 3. And then 15% is 10% add 5%, which is 9. So there's the first one done for you there as well. Okay, try not to use your calculator. If you're really struggling to divide something, then I will let you use it. But please try your best not to, because most of these will be on a non-calculator paper. So it's best that you do it without a calculator. Okay, so take a picture of your work and send to me via Google Classroom or via email, whichever one works for you. And any questions, let me know, and I'm here to help you. I hope once you've finished your maths, you have an absolutely lovely weekend, Year 9, and I hope you're all doing well.